Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back, boys and girls, grannies and gators, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday, October 11th. And as always, every Friday, 29 Fridays in a row, we have our resident finance whisperer, precious metals whisperer in the house, Mr. Bryce Wade. Welcome back, Bryce. I don't know about you, but I am kind of skidding out the end of this week going, OMG, am I used up? But this is kind of the wind down of the week for me, and it's always an interesting conversation when you come on. And I'm sure we're going to make everybody run for a stiff one here pretty quickly. But to get things started for us, Bryce, let's take a little bit of a wander through what the gold and silver. And last week we spent a lot of time on this, and tonight I want everybody to know. Maybe hang on with your questions a little bit towards the end. After so many comments, the last couple of shows, we're gonna kind of put our talking aside towards the end and let everybody jump in with their concerns and have a straight up Q&A with everybody. So how's that, Bryce?
Yeah, exactly. So the last week and the last couple sessions, I didn't even get to talking to what I actually wanted to talk about, which is fine because everybody was actually bringing up some really good questions. So I wanted to do kind of a more of a deep dive into the questions that everybody has. But what I do, the economy, war, really whatever you want. We can just have an open conversation. This is kind of the thing that I like to do anyway when I talk publicly. I like to have an open discussion and a collaborative discussion. So it's kind of one of the things that I care about most is our democracy being one voice, one vote, having more power to the people to do just that. And so I have a limited capacity to do that, but in this respect, I do have a degree of power to do that. So I thought it might be nice for everybody to just, hey, if you got questions about what I think or what I see or what questions you want to answer about the financial system, gold, silver, literally whatever, I like that because it triggers me to think about things in a different way usually. So that's kind of the reason for that today.
It's a great day to do this. It's a Thanksgiving weekend
Yeah.
coming up for everybody. I want to put your minds at ease in any way, shape, or form or capacity that we can here today. And I did see some people have noticed I am taking a day off, guys. I am taking Monday off. I am promised myself that I am 100% unplugging from everything and everybody. No offense. There's still going to be a Substack on Monday, but there won't be a show on Monday because I have been cutting it way too close to the quick the last little while, and I think I've earned a bit of a break. So
You have, man. You're a hard worker, bro. If nobody's told you this week, you do a great job, Wayne. Let me be at least the first.
Well, I've been almost doubling my show capacity the last week. Most of my shows have been 2.5 hours long, some as long as 4.5 hours over the last couple of weeks because there's just so much of I don't even know how to chaos world, psycho world, Ready Player One world, so much going on that you can't
coming, man.
even begin to touch on stuff in just a couple of minutes most of the time. So I'm going to take a little bit of a maintenance day on Monday, and we will. And this gives me. Sorry to take away from your time here on this, Bryce, but I do have a show announcement for next week. Next Tuesday, we've got Jim McMurdy. If you don't know him, I do like poking the bear, especially when people are lying and covering it up. I want people to know the truth, and I'm tired of seeing people being abused over a lie. So Jim McMurdy is a former teacher in Kelowna or Kamloops, I should say, and I think he taught there for 23 years until he was fired for not perpetuating the lie, and he's running for office now. So on Tuesday, we're going to hear what it's really like having to live in the midst of the Kamloops unified residential school grave drama that is just another excuse to divide our country, and it's time to put that to rest. So we're going to have Jim McMurdy on to have a probably contentious and disturbing discussion, but it's time to get people's feet planted back in reality again. So I'm looking forward to not the nature of the subject, but to having a good dialogue about it. So big announcement for Tuesday next week. That's something that is near and dear to me personally, having grown up in the middle of exactly that for most of my life. So I am definitely a here, hold my beer, and this is why you and I get along so well, Bryce. Take it away from there. I've got my work done for the day or for the show.
Yeah, and it's kind of little side note. I just find it a little bit ironic that you're like, "Hey, man, nice to relax and chill with Bryce," and then you're like, "Holy shit, bro! This is like a drink from a fire hose." A little bit of irony, just saying.
That's the roller coaster. Yeah, that's what it's like riding the dragon's tail, right? If you guys are new
Yeah.
here, I hope you guys find this entertaining and interesting enough to hit the subscribe button. And if you're not new here, you know what to do. Please give this a share and hit the like or the thumbs up, whatever it is, wherever you're at. We are still streaming on a few platforms, although Facebook did crack down on me again, removed 5 different posts, slammed me for sharing a Substack link, and told me nobody's going to see anything on Facebook anymore. So I think my days on Facebook are getting few. So thanks for doing that and helping us get the message out there.
Surprised you're still on there at all, to be honest. But yeah,
Well, I wasn't for the longest time. I'm just briefly back. So
that's why I
every
was
day
surprised.
is like, dessert.
Yeah. So bring up my screen for a second, and we'll go through gold first, and then silver. So maybe I'll blow this up a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So what I'm showing you here, so this is the 5 hours. So I'm doing this to kind of show you the pullback. So this was the high that we hit, 2,700 in gold, right? And so we're pretty much almost a year to when we hit a year to the day almost when we hit the all-time low. I'll bring that up in a second to show you. But since October of last year, it bottomed out at 1,850, and it's now 2,700 basically. So we're $100 away from $1,000 gain, which is about a 40% gain in 1 year. For gold, that is very unusual for a variety of reasons. So what I want to show you guys here is this week. So this week, from the 7th to today, this is what we call buying the dip. So if you guys bought, right in here, this is the low point for right now. So we're probably going to see another incline next year. I'd be surprised if it dipped too much below this, because this seems to be the new bottom, 1,600. Because like every time we've gone up, and you can probably see this, if my thing does not get out of the way here, stupid thing. There we go. So right here, so there was we got up to 2,500, 2,550. It dipped down a bit, and it goes way up. There's a dip. Then it goes. There's always a pullback after the new high, and I think that's what we just hit this week. So I would imagine things are going to accelerate in the near future. Not least of which because Israel is talking about first striking Iran and all of the other war that's happening and all the other crazy stuff that's happening.
I think that there's a question that I have to throw in here. Maybe it'll trigger some other questions a little later on down the road. But we also covered last night, for example, Toronto Dominion getting a $3 billion fine for money laundering, and the banks, several of the other banks. I didn't look into them. I didn't really have the time. But when it comes to mortgages and housing and interest rates and all of that, is this going to have an immediate, like, is this what we're seeing happening day by day, week by week? And is this coming week going to be kind of interesting? Hillary did promise us some special events in October.
Yeah, the October surprise is always here in some form or another. Maybe I can't answer that one way or the other because who knows what's going on in the background. But I do know this is that CMHC is already bailing out the mortgage sector. So they're we're already in bailout territory to prop up the economy. And so, I mean, beyond all the stuff that I've talked about, so the crash of the real estate, crash of the dollar, war. What else is happening? The interest rates, now the declining interest rates would trigger the SOM rule. So we're going to have another recession. And I just watched George Gammon put out a really great video that analyzed the parallels between 2007 it's actually really crazy. So the central
bail-ins and bailouts are coming again, and it's like happen more sooner than later, more likely.
Yeah, sooner rather than later for sure. But the interesting thing is they dropped, you know, when they dropped the interest rate by 50 basis points, right? That was on September 18th. They did it on the exact same day, the exact same amount in 2007.
Wow. Watch it repeat much?
Exactly. That was my first thought. I'm like, oh, hey, we did this. It worked so well last time. Let's do it again. So who knows? But what it looks like is that they're gunning for. In my this is now my personal speculation, is that I think they're going to try and do what they did in 2007, but because of all the massive amounts of debt that we have, it'll be much worse and much faster. And so what they're the drop in the interest rates basically told everybody, yo, shit's on fire. But they're still saying everything's fine, the economics are strong, and we just got all these jobs happening. Even though I don't want to get into to that part of it today, but like there's so much nonsense, and like the thing that I'm really waiting for to tell everybody that, like, hey, the recession is here now, is when they start talking about it in the mainstream media. They're like, oh my god, everything's on fire, because that's when all the normies notice. That's when I show gold and silver, that's when it's going to skyrocket, because that's when everybody's like, sell everything and save my net wealth, right? Because that's what I'm waiting for the real trigger for the explosion in gold prices and silver prices, because that's what I think will trigger it. So let's look at silver for a second. Silver. So same deal. So there's always, whenever there's a new high, there's always a pullback. So you see a high here, pullback, and then it skyrockets, right? New high, pullback, skyrockets, pullback, skyrockets, right? So we're on. If you pull this out to a little bit further than that, so if you do a line like those lines that all the super financial people always do, it's always on the uptrend now, because we've hit the bottom, and this was the bottom in when was this? That was 2022, right? So this was when this was when it was happening at that time. There was a swap crisis, or there was a overnight lending crisis. That's what it was. And so this was basically the bottom for silver, and then it started skyrocketing even more from there. And so I've been telling my family, people, like, hey, if you want to make money off of this, you still have time, but not much, right? Because I'm basically, my kind of personal goal is for silver to double or triple, and then when that ratio, I think I mentioned this last week, that when the ratio of gold to silver declines to a more reasonable amount, I'll sell some of that silver and get into gold, because eventually gold's going to be the goal. But there's a short term and medium term opportunity with silver to profit off of this. And I got a question here. So why doesn't silver keep up
just
gold?
going to run back through a few further back from Ian. Get another bank or credit union and start stacking silver coins. Seeing a lot of that happening right now. The local markets are busy. Black Swan October, I'm hearing that mentioned. It's kind of right on track, on par for that. Cannot argue. Mark Carney, don't get me started. Kind of wrong segment. I'm sure he'll come up a little bit later on. 3 billion will fix that. Not sure exactly. Oh, that's the TD.
That's what you were talking about. Yeah.
Fine for yeah. Wonder what
you notice how. Sorry, but
no,
I was just gonna say. So you notice, right, that if there's ever something bad that happens white collar style, it's always a fine. If it's something that happens, pleb style, it's always a criminal charge, right? So there's a great quote that I heard years ago that I'll share with everybody, that was basically like, if the only consequence for doing something is a fine, it's basically a speeding ticket for rich people.
Exactly. When it's like 163 criminal ethics violations for Trudeau and co, and he's still giving money away, another 400 million for Zelensky. Yeah, Norman is supposed to toilet paper. Stefan, hope the whole damn system goes down. It's not if, it's when. Careful what you wish for. You got some neighbors that probably could use a little bit more time, and this is why we do this show, because like Bryce was saying, you've got a little bit more time where you can do well on the silver, and probably that's still going to affect how long you can get access to any of this, because once the system collapses, the digital, the electronics, all of that collapses, How is anybody going to get or obtain that which they don't have at this point? So, this was a question that you brought up and you wanted to get to. So, why doesn't silver keep up with gold?
That's a good question. So the demands are different, right? And so one of the things that's contributing to this right now is that there's still a whole bunch of above ground silver that they're burning through, right? So there's about 100 million ounces per year that are being that's a deficit, and I think we have like 300 million or 500 million or something like that ounces above ground that are essentially in storage in some capacity. So you can still buy it on the open market, and it's not a one-to-one of demand to supply. So it's not like right now all of the gold that comes out of the ground is effectively for monetary purposes, right? So they're mining it for the express
Right.
purpose of putting it into bullion and putting it in a bank or somebody's hand or into jewelry or whatever, right? But it has an express purpose, and however much comes out is however much goes into the system. So it's a one-to-one, right? But silver's a little bit different, is that we have a reserve of it, right? And so that reserve is currently being depleted. And so once that reserve is depleted, now it's a one-to-one, and everybody that needs it, which is a huge amount of people and industries and companies and yada yada yada, now they're going to be paying a lot more for that because they need it. And I can't remember who it was. I think it's Peter Zion, which I disagree with quite a bit, but he does make some good points sometimes. And he basically said that the way that oil works is if you have a 90%, if you have 90% of what you need, that's at whatever the price, great, you'll pay whatever that price is, right? But if you're missing that 10%, you'll pay whatever you need to get it, because if you don't get it, you die, or it stops
Right.
running, or your society is
Mm.
collapses or whatever, right? So that excess that you don't have, that you have to pay extra for, that could be whatever it is, and you'll pay that. And so we're seeing something similar, or we will see something similar in silver, is because if a Tesla can't be manufactured, or some military part or whatever can't.
I was just gonna expand on that exactly. You know, as the price of gold gets higher and higher and higher, the tech and in manufacturing industry finds ways to use silver instead of gold in what they're developing and building in tech, and that is where some of that's going to uh, slingshot, I guess, silver back up, when it gets to that point. Don's comment here, this is going to this is a great point. A lot of these white collar crimes do fall under the RICO Act. The challenge is enforcement, and in Canada's case, it's going to take
Lack thereof.
international enforcement and pressure. So I think a lot of that is at this point something to dream about. Perhaps Trump winning, surviving, and actually doing something about draining the swamp and catching some of the RICO criminals up here pulling the coup of Canada. So that's kind of my slippery little navigation through that. You're not wrong, Don, but don't hold your breath, my friend. From Tom here, when the system goes down, nothing will be protected: food, heat, etc. And you're not
Yeah.
going to get silver then. You're not going to get anything except what is available to you within your network and your community. I couldn't agree with you more, Becky. How do I buy silver?
Great question.
This is going to take Bryce a minute or two because there's all kinds of ways. Um, I'll just leave that up to you. That's why you're here.
That is why I'm here. And so for anybody that doesn't know, if somebody's new that's joining us, there's kind of three ways that you can do it, just in general. You don't necessarily have to do it with us, New World Precious Metals, but obviously we hope that you do, because it helps out Wayne. And so basically the three options that you have are: number one, retail. So that's physical gold coins or silver bars or whatever kind of precious metals that you want. It's basically in your hand. So we essentially deliver it to your door. We keep your privacy in mind. There's very little questions that we ask of you. You give us the money, we send you the gold or the silver. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And I put everything on a spectrum of in your hand and in your control, in the system and not in your control. And so on the opposite end of that spectrum is registered accounts. So your RSPs, liras, RIFs, stuff like that. You could work with us and Quest Trade, and you can back up your life savings or your retirement savings with precious metals in your RSPs, so you don't trigger a tax event right away. So there's a lot of people that talk to me about that. can I do this? How do I do this? So that's one of the things that we can help you with. I'm not going to expand on it too much now, but that you have that ability to do that if you want. Lots of people have been talking to me about that, and thank you for all the people that have reached out to me in the last couple of weeks. Thank you for reaching out, and we're working on your orders. So the third and kind of the biggest differentiator for us compared to everybody else is essentially a vaulted service. So you basically give us money and it's sitting in a vault. It's still physical precious metals that you own and you have not custody of, but ownership of. It's what do you call it? Insured. It's there. It's audited twice a year. And so we work with a company called Precious Metals International, and they are the service provider for this. So it's a Cayman Island structure. So we don't share any of your information with anybody, including the government of Canada. And the only way that they would know about it is by a subpoena or by a criminal charge of some sort. We've never had that problem. And essentially, what that allows you to do is buy these metals at wholesale. And the big advantage to this is kind of twofold. Number one is that you can loan against your holdings. So if anybody's ever gone to the bank to be like, hey, bank, can you give me a loan? They rip your life apart and kind of judge you for all the bad stuff that you did and whether or not they want to give you money or not. But this is different in the sense that they will automatically and guarantee that they can give you a loan because they have the actual collateral. So what I've been telling people is that you can essentially double dip on your money and say, I want, here's 10,000 or 100,000, whatever the number is, and you put it in gold and silver with us in this way. You can sell it back to the system very easily. It's a little bit more difficult to do that if you have it in your hand because you have to go to an exchange. That's one of the drawbacks of that. And on top of that, you can also effectively leverage it. What it actually is financing additional purchase of metal, and so you can really make a lot of money off of the bull run that's happening right now. So those are two different ways that you can do that. And the kind of the benefit with that is if you have this $100,000, right? Let's just say, and you have $10,000 expenses every year, it means you've got 10 years of expenses, right? But in this case, if you put those $100,000 into precious metals, right, you can take out those $10,000 for your expenses that you need, but you can hold on to the actual metal, the actual asset, and it is accruing in value right now. So you're making money while holding the asset and while doing the same thing. So you're not depleting your asset, you're increasing your asset. So this is kind of an example of how the super ultra wealthy use debt to their advantage. This is one of the examples. You wouldn't want to do that in a down market when silver and gold are declining, but we are not there at all.
And this is one of those, simpler answers for one of the questions that's coming up here, and I can kind of catch it here now. Is it's you guys are different from the banks in that you actually use physical material. It's not tokenized. It's not a digital representation of people can go and access, whether it's 5 pounds or 50 pounds, you can go and get it when you want it, basically. So that's kind of one of the significant differences in being private. The banks can't bail in and take, if you got if you say have a bunch of money in gold at the bank and you think it's in a safety deposit box and you can go and get it out. Well, no, that's not the way it works at the banks. And if the banks decide, the government decides that they want it, they're going to have it. So those are some of the, to me, in simple form, some of the big differences. I want to get through a couple of these other questions here before they stack up too far. This is great. When the shit hits fan, food will be currency as much as gold and silver. Yes. That is true, 100%. And this is one of the things we talk about here often. Get those kinds of things in order first, then consider perhaps some precious metals. With New World Precious Metals, your company, it's a $5,000 start, but there's lots of ways to get your gold and silver. And we encourage people to do what you can with what you got wherever you're at. And so that's, whether it's gold, silver, bull.ca, they're great for small. You want to get just a couple of silver coins at a time, go to goldsilverbull.ca. If you have a Costco membership, go there. If you're careful and savvy at Costco, I was just watching a video on this the other day, because by the time it hits the shelves and gets a price tag on it, if you're watching it day by day by day, you could actually sometimes score some under spot. Not that I encourage anybody to go with Costco, but there's just lots of ways that you can get gold and silver. So
there was one from, can I bring up
Carol
one?
Sobi, how much of the gold trade is just paper, not physical?
Great question.
Gold trade itself? Great question.
Great, really good question. So
How do I show this? Let me bring up GLD. 1 sec.
I
GLD.
see another question here that I think I can answer. Um,
Let's see
about
GLD.
the commercial about little break apart. There it is. Remoulade shows a gold card being able to break it apart for smaller transactions. Those are called
Yeah.
fractionals, and you can get those from places like goldsilverbull.ca and sometimes even at Costco. So that's exactly what they're designed for, is small exchange currency. So sorry, sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt.
yeah. That's okay. So let me explain this, and then I'll come back to the other couple questions that I saw. So this is essentially an ETF. So this is a silver ETF, and there's a similar one called GLD for gold. And so effectively, what this is a representation and a continuous contract. So I'm very much simplifying this. It's a little bit more advanced than this, but I'm just going to give you kind of the summary. So effectively what happens is that they have a bunch of gold. Let's call it 1,000 ounces of gold, just for simplicity. And they put that in the COMEX, which is the commodity exchange in the U.S. That's the main exchange for. I think they keep it in the COMEX. It might be somewhere else. But anyway, they have these ounces that are put into this. Effectively, it's a fund, right? So an electronically traded fund is what ETFs are. And what that does is that's the benchmark, that's the backing of that fund with physical precious metals. So you're taking out a continuous contract that automatically gets renewed because you don't take delivery. And so what some people are doing right now is taking delivery of that gold or silver from that fund. Now, I'm not exactly sure how that works. I just know that that is how it works, because it doesn't really matter to me for what I'm doing. So the important thing to keep in mind about this is that for every ounce that is in that fund, that is backing up that fund, 400 ounces are sold into that fund. So this is one of the ways, and somebody else was mentioning about the manipulation of gold and silver. This is one of the ways that they do it, because effectively what you can do is you can have company one say, I'm going to sell a bunch of these contracts, and have another company buy those contracts when it's the same company owned. It's owned by the same company. So effectively no money trades hands. So they just line up the thing and it goes across, and then it's effectively the same. But they're effectively putting downward pressure, or upward pressure if they really wanted to, but they want downward pressure on that ETF, which is one of the benchmarks that they use. So the actual price of silver and gold has been suppressed for a long time, but there's so much money going into it right now for obvious reasons that they can't hide it forever, and eventually they're not going to be able to stop it at all. And one of the reasons for this is they want to buy as much as they can for as low a price as they can, because they are preparing for this, right? Same with China, is that they have the SCO, which is the Shanghai Commodity Organization. I can't remember the acronym. It's Shanghai something or other, and they're effectively buying gold and silver at a premium. So effectively, what's happening is people in the West are being like, well, if I buy it over here and I sell it over there, I make a spread. We call it arbitrage. And what an arbitrage is you're making a portion of you're making the difference, or the delta between the two numbers. And so there's lots of traders that are just buying stuff in the West, selling it in the East, and pocketing the difference. But that means that all of those precious metals are going to China and staying there. So they're essentially paying a premium. They're using capitalism against itself. Hey, you greedy assholes, sell all over here, bro.
I want to address this one here, just from my thoughts on it. When shit hits the fan, how do we use these metals? Well,
Another good
here's the
question.
thing about it: gold and silver have been currencies for 5,000 years. Our monopoly money is going to be worth exactly that. But whether it's today's monopoly money or tomorrow's monopoly money, whoever's got it is going to be willing to part with it for your precious metals that you might have. This one, I'm sure I can answer it. Maybe you want to expand on it. I'm sure New World Precious Metals deals with every bank, Bryce, or is there something that you guys are going to be changing soon?
No, so what he's referring to is where the company has their bank account. So TD, for better or for worse, is one of the biggest banks in Canada, and New World Precious Metals, their bank account is at TD. So I may be telling you, and I believe personally, that the system is broken, and I don't like the banks or the government for a variety of reasons, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, this is still the system we live in, and you have to have a connection to it in some way, shape, or form. And the one that they chose is one of the biggest in Canada, which is TD Bank. So take that for what it's worth. That's what it is.
The cost of functioning in this corrupt system at the moment. How long does it take between payment and delivery? Great question.
It's usually about 5 days. So it depends. So how it typically works. So let's just use the retail as an example, right? So you come to me and say, "Hey, I've got $5,000. I want to buy some gold and silver." Sounds good. What do you want? This is how the process works. You tell me what you want. I give you a quote. You agree to the quote. Then you have basically 2 days to send us the money, because that's about how long the quote stays active or relevant. It's actually 1 day, but we usually
prices change. So yeah,
prices change. Exactly. So that's usually good for 1 to 2 days. Typically it's 1 day, but I usually give people an extra day because for whatever reason couldn't get to the bank or whatever. You send us the money and we send it out. It gets you get an email with a tracking number essentially, and it gets sent out. It's shipped within a day or two of that, and then it's delivered usually within 2 days. So the whole process usually takes about 4 to 5 days. 7 if it's like on near the end of the week and it comes on Monday.
Thanks for that, Mountain Man. Yours took 5 days. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great testimonial. I wanted to touch on this. These prices have been manipulated in all of these things since the beginning of perpetuity. So long as there's for every fiat currency and Ponzi scheme that they've imagined along the way. But one of the things, whether we like it or not, that we have to are best prepared for is when we talk about things like BRICS and these alternative currencies and countries that are dumping the US dollar, they are moving to these exact same commodities backed currencies. So whether it's our greenbacks or American greenbacks or whatever the next currency down the road is going to be, there's at least you're never going to go in the hole on the materials outside of the monopoly money that you use to get a hold of it. So that's just my thought on that. Yeah, rather not go through a bank. I prefer to not go through banks as well.
Yeah, so on that, so I've been asked multiple times, can I do cash? You can, but you still have to put it in our bank account because that's the only way we can receive it. So so can you buy it for cash from me? No.
So yeah. So I guess that answers that.
As long as you can put it into the bank and you're okay with that, you can. So that's still kind of arm's length. Would take very little information from you. They wouldn't know that the transaction was from you, but you still have to put it into a bank so that it's in our records.
Great question here, Iris. That is, high quality material, but you're paying for the commemorative value of it.
Yeah.
You still, when you go to cash it in, it's going to be no
different.
worth no more than the Britannia that I bought for $30 from Gold Silver Bulls. So that's why I don't encourage people to buy those ceremonial sets or post office sets if they're actually looking at if they like it and it's a pretty shiny thing and you got to have it, fill your boots. But it's not worth the money, and even that's the same as these little coins here that I've got. They retail for $15, but that's about $5, $4 worth of silver there, right? So that's the difference between those kinds of sets. So yeah.
Let me bring up this one. So David Doyle at 733, because he's asked this twice, so I want to cover this. So what are the vault charges and can I explain them? Yes. So the way that the charges work for the wholesale program, which is what I was talking about, which is the vault, there's only 3 charges that you pay. There's a fee for the purchase, a fee for the storage, and a fee for the sale. So you can effectively think of it like this. So we charge between 5 and 7%. The retail is usually about 10% for gold, maybe as low as 8% sometimes. So we charge a flat fee of between 5 and 7%, depending on how much you purchase for the purchase. And then there is 1.4% per year that is charged against your account. So it doesn't affect your cash flow. You don't have to put money into it. It just affects your account and is and it's charged. So it's charged to your account. And then there's a fee for the sale of the metal, which is another reason why this is a cash flow advantage structure, in the sense that you can loan money, you can take a loan out against the metal and take the money out without selling the asset. And we've seen that precious metals has gone up by about 7%, roughly 7 to 9% per year since the beginning of the century. So for the last like 25 years, it's done about 8% per year, which is really good. So if your asset is rising by 7-8% a year for literally doing nothing and it's safe, that's a pretty
That's
good
better than my RRSPs did for me. That's better than my RRSPs did for me in 10 years. So that's kind of the idea behind it, right?
So
can you e-transfer? Yes.
You can, if it's a small amount. We prefer that you don't. So anything above like basically $10,000, we pretty much will say just send us a wire because it's easier. It makes our accounting on the back end just really annoying to do. So we prefer that you don't, although you do have the ability, yes.
Do you buy gold? Carol does her research. These are some great questions, Carol. Wow. I can't answer this.
So yes, to some degree. So there's two providers. Essentially, there's two main providers that we have, although we have a couple other providers as well. So the answer is effectively yes, but when we're talking about PMI, the answer is no, in the sense that it is a Cayman Islands domiciled company. So we're not technically buying it from Canada, although the gold is in Canada. So in that sense, it's a yes. So it really depends on what type of purchase you're talking about, but effectively yes.
Here's the next one for you, Bryce. Good question
Oh,
again.
really good question. Yeah. So there's no taxes on precious metals if it's bullion. So bullion means that it's 99.99% pure, and there's no taxes whatsoever on bullion at all for the purchase of the sale. So no government touches that in Canada anyway. I'm not sure about the rest of the world.
that's probably one of the least.
It's one of the only things in the economy that is not taxed.
Right. That's kind of shocking to me. Probably one of the least known secrets of all. So there you go, folks. Yeah. No tax on it when you buy it. What happens if you go to exchange it and you make money on it? Say in Canada.
So that's the caveat, right? So if it's in a registered account, you will. So if you purchase there's still fees for the purchase and the sale, and if you pull it out, there's taxes on that. So that's different, right? Because it's not a tax on the metal itself; it's a tax on you specifically because you're pulling it out of your RSP. So it's slightly different.
So how does that work then? So that's dealing with RSPs and obviously then bank vaulted, whatever your investment in the metals are. But when it's with you guys, obviously, I guess you're not taking out cash when you. Or unless, do you guys buy back or how does that work?
Yes.
So
yes.
You can literally walk in and take out your bag full of gold or sell it back to you guys. Does that kind of get around some of the pound of flesh from the government?
Yes. So yes, in a way, I probably have to be careful about this. So let me kind of give you kind of two examples, right? So one example is you come to us and say, "Give me $10,000 of gold in the wholesale program," right? Boom, you got $10,000 roughly of gold in the wholesale program. So you can sell that and pull that money out. You don't get taxed on that. So there's no taxes on it. There's just the fees because it's bullion, right? In a similar way, if you have a whole bunch of coins, if you go and take that to an exchange, it might be difficult and they might ask you a whole bunch of questions. There's a little bit of a process to getting back into fiat. We can take the silver and gold that you have, as long as you have paperwork for it, and we can put it in our vault, essentially in our premium bullion program. So you can capitalize it in the same way, and it's just essentially put aside. So you can capitalize it and then you can sell it back to the system if you want to. And that's kind of the nice thing about this wholesale program is it's outside of the banking system, but it's still connected to the system. So if you need the cash out, it's still an asset that you can monetize or capitalize or what's the word? Recapitalize, I guess, because basically what I mean is get back into fiat currency if you need the cash. It is one of the options that we have.
Right. Can you transfer a TFSA to silver or gold?
Another good question. So TFSAs are registered accounts. Pardon me. But they're unique in the sense that you're not punished for pulling out money from them. And so what it effectively means is you can think of it like a checking account that has bonuses. So if you make an investment in a TFSA, so let's say you invested in a silver mine or something, and they got bought out by Barrick Gold or something, and you got 10x on your money, you have all of that money sitting in your TFSA. You can effectively pull all of that out tax free because it was in a TFSA. Now, typically, when I talk about registered accounts, that includes TFSAs, but it doesn't make sense to use money in a TFSA in the Questrade platform because you're charged extra for doing the exact same thing as you would be in the wholesale program. So I think of TFSAs effectively like cash because you can pull them out. And if you were going to use the money in a TFSA, I would recommend that you get either the physical precious metal or the wholesale account because you're just going to pay extra for it in the registered account. And there's no reason to effectively.
Well, if you're here's another one from Tom. Better in your hand than any bank account.
Yes.
If you've got gold or silver in your bank accounts or your banks, it's definitely going to be way better in your hand.
Yes, and he made another good point
Can
at
you take-
440. Go back to his last one for a sec because I want to talk on that for a sec. So this is a really important thing for everybody to understand. Government, what the hell's the name of it? The CDIC, I think. Yeah, Canadian Deposit Insurance Corporation. They only insure every account up to $100,000. So anything that's in any account above $100,000, is not insured in any way, shape, or form. And let's assume for a second that you did get paid out on that insurance. I personally don't think you would, but let's just say that you did. That means that anything that's above $100,000 is at risk if that institution goes bust. And so in the way that I explain the gold and silver wholesale program is think of it like a bank account because it's not a bank account. It's like a bank account, but it holds gold and silver that you can pull money out of. That's the differentiator, right? So if you don't trust the banks, if you don't trust anybody, but you still want to have access to this capital, this is one of the safest things that you can do and still hold on to the liquidity of your asset, right? Because the only thing that's more liquid than this is cash itself, is fiat currency itself.
Well, and here's something for folks to consider. You guys and what you do in your job, and this is one of the reasons why you are structured the way you are, is specifically knowing and understanding the peril and risk that people are at right now. And you guys know that if the banks actually collapse, what the damage is going to be on that, and that is probably going to collapse your company at the same time, and you know this, but at the end of the day, if and when that should ever actually happen, you will have gotten as much tangible material into as many people's pockets as possible in order to move forward. And I'm sure you guys will adapt to whatever system comes next. But at that point in time, that's where people might want to think about we've passed the point of no return on the national debt. So if you've got, I don't know, if you, like you said, if you get paid out even for the insurance claim, anything over $100,000, I don't think Trudeau and the talking tater tot are going to let you get anything back on that. So taxes lost taking it RSPs won't seem like much to pay when SHTF
And this is
cannot argue.
Yeah, and so this actually perfectly speaks to a question that I talk to almost every single person that I talk to that's interested in RSPs. I have this discussion with them. So there's basically two things that you need to consider so if anybody here has RSPs, this is one, you can go and talk to your institution, wherever they are, ask them about gold and silver. If they say it's a bad investment, get your money out of there because they don't know what the hell they're talking about, especially right now. Two is that when it comes to the tax implications of an RSP, this is the two things that you need to consider: how much money you're willing to give up to the government, and B, how much do you think the system is going to be around to be there when you need that money, right? So those are the two things you're going to consider. And when it comes to the taxes, what an RRSP is it effectively deferred taxes. I lower my tax burden now when I'm making more money. I put this money aside, and the government's going to take their pound of flesh at the end of my life when I'm making less money, and I'm pulling this out for my retirement. But at some point, that money is going to be paid. It's now, it's tomorrow, it's yesterday, whatever it was, they're taking that money no matter what. So the question for you, if you're considering doing this, is do I want to wait or do I want to get it out now? And that, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but that is that threshold, wherever it is what you have to determine is the right amount of risk for you. If you believe that the system is going to be there for when you need it, when you're 65, 70, whatever the number is, great. Keep it in there. You don't get taxed on it. You can protect it. It'll accrue value. If it's in precious metals, you can still do that. You can still make investments with it. Lots of people have talked to me about doing that. So they only put 20, 30, 40% of their total into precious metals, and then they invest the rest of it. You can do that. That's totally up to you, right? But my recommendation on this is that if you don't trust the system and you don't trust anybody running the system, what's better, to be first out or last out? It's very simple. You should be first out, because you don't. Anybody that's last out ain't gonna get shit.
Right. So this one I don't know anything about TFSAs. I don't know if there is a max.
There is a max.
Maybe you want to touch on that.
Yeah. So there's a
and then-
maximum. What's the word? Not disbursement, investment. I can't remember the word. There's a word that they use for putting money into the TFSA. I can't remember what it is. I'm sure somebody will tell me in the chat. But effectively, there's a maximum amount that started the year that they implemented a TFSA. That was in Harper years. I think it's like $10,000 a year, $5,000 a year or something. And so it's slowly been creeping up the maximum that you can put in. And so that maximum, I think now, is like $70,000 or something. So you could effectively take $70,000 of your net worth, put it in a TFSA, tax-free, no restrictions, and then use that as an investment into other areas of the market, or put it into the markets of some different type of whatever you want to invest in. And you can do that at any time. So what he's what was that? I can't remember who asked the question. So sorry. But whoever said that. So what they're effectively talking about is, if you go over that amount, there's punishments for that. There's consequences for that.
Okay.
Well, of which I'm not sure what they are.
So that's any institution, not any account, isn't it? That when the government says they want the money, I think that's institution wide, industry wide. It's
on the account,
right? Oh, it's on the account.
Yeah. Right? So every account is independent of every other. So you could so let's say you had $1 million and you put $100,000 in 10 accounts. They're all insured up to $100,000. It's not on your person. It's not the institution. It's on the account.
And then Lori pipes in with the $1 million question from there. What happens if the insurance company goes bankrupt? Which it's probably I would expect almost to happen 10 seconds after the banks go bankrupt.
Yeah,
No?
this one I'm not sure. Well, I've actually asked this of financial insurance people that I know, and nobody really has a good answer to this. And there's a couple of reasons why. Number one is that insurance companies predate the banking system itself. So I don't know actually how it would affect it, but I can't imagine, if you just do the math, that if all of these people that needed all of this money needed it all at the same time, they don't have this money. It's not like they're sitting on $7 trillion to pay everybody out. So where does this money come from? And this is kind of my ultimate question about the financial system, is if we're all insured for $100 and we all go bust at the same time, we've all had this insurance that we've been paying into. Does this one entity have all of this money that they're going to pay out? Did they take out insurance on themselves in case this happened? Like it's just an absurdity when you actually think about the math of it. And so we're essentially, how do I put this? This car is driving. Nobody's driving it. And we're all just along for the ride and hope it doesn't fly off a cliff, which we're now flying off a cliff. This is kind of how I think about it now. So the question to me is either, how are you going to stop the car? Or how are you going to get out of the car?
Right. Credit union insures 100% of all deposits. I think I
don't know if that's accurate.
About that.
I don't think so.
I was just going to say,
I'll look into that.
Sorry, Carly. Such a great comment. I have to show it again. How much do you trust a government insurance policy? No, not so much. Insurance claim to be on 100,000, but they just might take it all. Don't trust them on any level. That's the sound of wisdom there.
Yeah. I want to pull up a question from kind of the beginning, and it was from him, Stephen, which is, Bryce, what is another alternative other than investing in gold and silver? Good question. Sorry it took so long to get to it. But the big thing, so I talked to Andy Scheckman when I was at VRIC at the beginning of the year, and somebody asked this basically identical question, and he said something to the effect of, well, there's lots of different areas in the economy that do well in tough times, and I kind of mirror that sentiment, and my response to it was effectively, if you think of all of the necessities in your own life, right? If you're running out of money, and you're like, hey, I don't have all of the money that I need for all of the things I want to do, what does all of your money go to? Necessities. So you cut out all the stuff you don't need and you focus on the stuff you absolutely need. That's food, water, shelter, the basics of life, right? Like people in third world countries, they're not buying crazy Bugattis and stuff because they don't have the freaking money. What are they buying all the time? Food to keep their family alive, diapers to keep their kids happy, toys for whatever. So the stuff that we get overseas and the stuff that you need to survive on a daily basis, that if we go to war, when we go to war with China, whatever, that stuff won't be coming here. So there's probably going to be companies in the West that do those things. Those companies will probably do really well. And to the 2020 shutdown of the economy really showed everybody that when major things happen and change, some companies do really well and some do really badly, right? And so if you're going to look around the economy and say, what's going to do really well when things go crazy and go really badly? Well, those are potential investment opportunities. Gold and silver mines, those are going to be good investments if you can find some good ones. I'd highly recommend. There's lots of money to be made in mining. It's just a very long-term process. So it can take a while for you to make any money on it, but you can make a lot of money on it. That's kind of the trade-off. And the ultimate thing is somebody else said earlier today is that food is the number one thing that everybody is going to care about. You have to understand that probably about 80 to 90% of people only have enough food in their house for a week, if that, because they go to the store every couple of days and they re-up and they get everything. Yep. Well, what if you can't go to the store for 2 weeks? Well, anybody that has food is going to make a lot of money.
Yeah. The folks in the Appalachia Mountains are understanding what happens when you go to try and plug your electric car in or get money out of the bank account or take the $750 that they gave you. But now I got a question here. I'm going to pull up from Brenda. This is one of the most common questions that I have gotten over the last 3-4 years. And why I asked Bryce to do this show with me on a regular basis, because I feel you every bit of what you're writing here, Brenda. So this is why we're here, Bryce.
Yeah. So this specifically, one of the things that they're going to try and do, and they're already trying to do this, is increase the expenses on your house, because Chrystia Freeland is, as much as I hate her, and this is one of the many reasons, is that she is actually trying to get people out of their house. Like Trudeau even said, like, the seniors got too much house for too old a person. What an unbelievable insult. Like, anybody that votes for these bunch of idiots is just beyond stupid, in my opinion now. Because how can you vote for somebody that's literally telling you they're going to steal your money, destroy your house, and take all your shit? Like, it's insane to me. But what they're trying to do is increase the expenses of your basic necessities.
60, 70, 80% tax hikes in places right now.
Yeah, it's crazy, and this is my point. And so one of the ways that you can offset this, so somebody asked me something similar, is that, hey, I need to pay off my house completely. How can I do it? Well, gold and silver are one of the things that are going to skyrocket in value. So if you get in now and you put in, $20, $40, $50, $100,000, whatever, and you finance additional metal, there's a good chance that you can double or triple or even more your net wealth through this bull run. This is what happened. It has happened multiple times in even recent history, and I think it's going to happen again very soon. So this is one of the ways that you can leverage the money that you do have, still have the access to the liquidity that you need in case you need it, and have the ability to make a significant amount of money. So if you want to make money on this bull run, click on the link below this video and have a talk with me, and I'll show you how. But this is one of the things that I listen for when people are asking me about what do I do? Do you want to save what you have and be extremely secure and safe, or do you want to make money on this bull run, or do you want to make money in your net wealth? These are the two things that I listen for, and what I just shared is one of the ways that you can do that to increase your net wealth with this opportunity.
All right. What about money, invested money not in a bank?
Sorry, say again. I missed that.
What's that?
So I missed the question. Say again.
What about invested money not in a bank? So,
can you expand on what you mean, Simone? I'm not sure exactly what you mean, because
you're thinking stock markets, and that goes. Those guys are the first guys to cut and run.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to make a lot of money, you could short everything. You got to have some serious capital and be able risk tolerance to do that. But you got to understand. So when I talked about the GFC earlier, so the global financial crisis in 2007, I looked at George Gavin's video today, and I didn't even realize this. But the Dow Jones Industrial Average at that time was $13,000. Okay, it's at 42,000 right now, so it's literally tripled in value over the last 15 odd years or whatever it is. What was that? 15, 18 years? What's math here? 17, so 18 years. That's crazy. Or 17 years. So you can write it all the way down if you want to, but there's a risk to that too, is that the markets might be so obliterated that that you might not be able to get it out. That's kind of the risk. Oh, so money in investments. Yeah. So
I want to touch on this one for sure. Yeah, that's why Bryce loves to harp on this one too.
Yeah.
Get your food shit or in order first. But when the monopoly money is worth nothing, silver or gold might still buy you that can of tuna. But if you haven't got that can of tuna, you're right. It's gonna be tough. Right?
Yeah, and he actually did another one at 7:55. Dry foods, rice, beans, dehydrated vegetables, cooking oils is a necessity. Soap, first aid, small fuel supply, propane, etc. Exactly. So these are the hard assets, and so think of gold and silver as an addendum or a not a luxury per se, but an interchange. It's supposed to be a mechanism of exchange for the stuff that you don't have, right? So I tell everybody every time that I speak publicly, go get the hard assets now while they're cheap, because the system is still running. You can still get it at a fairly, even though it's doubled in price over the last couple of years, it's still a reasonable price, right? If you can't get any of this stuff, how much is that stuff going to cost? When you couldn't get any toilet paper, people were selling it like a toilet paper roll at a time, right? It's going to be the same thing, because you got to understand, right? If you don't have access to something, if you need that thing, you're going to be willing to pay whatever you need to get it, right? And that's where this craziness comes from, is that if most people can't get what they need, it's pandemonium, it's chaos, it's violence, right? So you don't want to be fighting other people for the stuff that you need. Go get that shit now. And the reason that you want gold and silver is that when that is there, you can be like, hey, this guy's going to give you $5,000 of your worthless monopoly money. Here's a gold coin. Give me it, and you'll get it first, right? Because the gold and silver is supposed to be an exchange, an intermediary between those resources. It's universal. It's the people, everybody everywhere accepts that the gold and silver is valuable. The difference is that we've all been conditioned, because we've grown up in it throughout generations now, to be cash and money is the top of the hierarchy. But if that ever changes, well, gold and silver is going to be the only replacement, because you either have gold or silver, or you're making a exchange, or you're talking violence. There's really only a couple ways that that's going to work. So you have the stuff that you have now, or the gold, the food, fuel, whatever you need. You have gold and silver for an exchange, or you got violence. There's nothing else.
Yeah. So a couple of questions here. Similar line of thinking. All of our assets are in land and homes. We're afraid to sell or retire because we fear putting it in a bank, but we'll need ready cash too. It's scary to be older. Talking about equity, to taking equity out of their homes to do this.
And so answer to her is that would be a perfect example of the wholesale program being the perfect solution to that, because you don't have to keep all of that cash in the bank. You can put it into gold and silver. You can still get the cash out when you need it, and nobody can touch it except you.
And this one here is incredibly poignant right now, given C293 and some of the other things coming down the pipe. It's kind of in the same vein of them hiking property taxes 70-80% in places. They want your properties, and so if you can't sell them, and if you sell them for monopoly money, or at some point, I just have this really sinking feeling in my stomach for people that are heavily invested in different things like that.
Yeah, Lynette Zhang actually is predicting that you'll be able to buy a house with a gold coin at some point, because it'll be worth so much, and property values will crash. Because you got to understand too, if the government says, "Hey, go those 10 acres that you got over there, you owe us $100,000 on of taxes on that stuff now," and the only way that you'll be able to do that is to sell one of those acres or something, so that you can raise that capital to pay those taxes. And so that's how they're slowly chipping away at what we own, because like you got to pay those taxes. And so one of the ways that the governments around the world are trying to front load, prepare for the change is to get, hey, I've got my gold here that's going to go up in value. I can pay off all of my national debt. You can do the same thing personally. You can do the same thing corporate. So if you have a corporation, you can do the same thing. You can have gold and silver on your corporate balance sheet as well. But what I'm getting at, and the reason I'm saying this, is that if you're banking on or not banking, if you're certain of the idea that our taxes and our payments are going to go up, gold and silver can potentially, when the prices rise to what we think they will, you can potentially pay off all of your debt with that rise. So you get it cheap now, it increases in value, and you pay it off and say, government, get bent. And here's your bullshit, get out of here.
Yeah. And this is the last one here. We've actually caught up right on time here too. You will own nothing and be happy. Crown Land Leases. Oh, another one. Yeah. You can get something out of them now that can get you something that might be useful down the road. And I'm not telling anybody what to do. At the end of the day, everybody's got to make their own decisions. But just trying to keep people informed that however many options or possibilities might be out there. Thank you, Bryce, again for answering such a wide range of questions again. By next week, I hope everybody, by this time, same time next week, same place, I hope everybody is, we found world peace, and Thanksgiving is being celebrated, and everybody's got a turkey hangover still, and all of that. So at the end of the day, that's what this is all about, is trying to get you guys, access to information. And if you want to set up an appointment with Bryce, it's actually pretty easy to do. I'll actually even pull that up. Wow.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of people that have reached out in the last couple of weeks, so thank you for that. And if I didn't answer any of your questions, you can feel free to reach out to me on Facebook or Twitter, or you can just book a call with me, and I'll hop on a call with you, because I get all of the leads that come from Wayne.
Yeah, you can find whatsupcanada.org. That link is everywhere, and right here on the top of the page is a link that take you to New World Precious Metals, and there you can schedule a call and a meeting, and Bryce can answer your questions even further. And I hope Bryce's contact info is in the chat thread here. Excuse me, you can get a hold of him on X there, or get a hold of him through the site if you want to talk metals with him. That way we can keep track of things and where his the people here he's talking to are coming from. So on that note, Bryce, I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving weekend, and whether you celebrate or not, I hope your pants shrink on you over the weekend. Before
Oh, they will. And I'm almost maxed out, so I can't get too fat anymore. Otherwise I got to buy bigger pants, and that's a no-no.
All right, awesome stuff. We'll see you next week. All right, guys, that's a wrap for the show and for my week. Got to kind of rest, regroup, recuperate. I hope that answers some of your questions. As always, you can find everything that we do on Substack. The link is there. You can find a link to Substack on whatsupcanada.org as well. And I want you guys all to, have a great weekend. Enjoy your family. The real world isn't in Trudeau's head or in Ottawa. And remember the people. Remember the people. Stay mighty. Be grateful. Get fat. Enjoy your families. And we'll see you on Tuesday. Slightly different day. But we will be back with more disturbing clown world shenanigans, truth, cover-ups, scandals. I'm sure there will be plenty. So until then, I love you all, my friends, family, patriots, prisoners, and hostages. We'll see you on Tuesday.
In times of global instability, soaring inflation, and massive debt, gold and silver have proven to be unshakable pillars of wealth. New World Precious Metals, based in Calgary, Canada, is a leading international brokerage. We offer an easy, secure, and cost-effective platform for investing in gold and silver, including our international wholesale program and registered retirement savings accounts. Protect your money outside traditional banking with our physical precious metals, privately vaulted outside the banking system at secure, insured exchanges worldwide. Gold and silver have been trusted assets for generations, with current projections indicating high returns. And with unprecedented demand from governments, banks, and investors, there are now shortages. Precious metals thrive during inflation, geopolitical instability, and currency devaluation. Sound familiar? Now is the time to invest in gold and silver, whether in your international investment account or by transferring registered retirement savings accounts. Experience the security of physical precious metals, combining the safety of physical assets with the flexibility of being like your own bank, offering instant liquidity and a financed line of credit. With precious metals on the rise, don't miss this generational opportunity to protect your wealth. At New World Precious Metals, we ensure your wealth meets its potential. Contact us today and our personal brokers will guide you every step of the way.